All right. Welcome to the Where's Your Next Recruiting and Talent Vlogcast. Today I have an awesome guest, and I've been wanting to do this with Miss for a very long time. The last time we kind of talked about it at the last SourceCon in
Hmm.
October, and a lot has happened since then. Why don't you tell us what did happen?
I became the editor of
You did.
SourceCon.
How does that feel?
Oh, it is a surreal feeling. It's like I've been to SourceCon, I've emceed it multiple times, I've spoken there multiple times, but my experience has been show up to the party, do your thing, and then hang out with friends. It's pretty much. And now operating behind the curtain, like the great and powerful Oz, I get to see how the sausage is made. And it's a slightly different experience.
Mhm.
Um, I recognize how much work, a lot of work goes into putting an event together. And I guess I just sort of took it for granted. You show up and do your thing. But now that I see all the work that goes behind the scenes, getting it done with the people I work with the volunteers, with the community, I am just amazed at how special the event is, how much work that goes into it. I see it all from a totally different lens now, and I'm all the more appreciative for sure.
Well, it's so fun to see you in this role because okay, I'm just going to take some folks back in time here. When I was kind of 3 or 4 years into my recruiting journey, and I remember back in the Great Recession days.
Mm.
When I first got my iPhone, you had created an app for all things recruiting,
Yeah.
and you were kind of on the cutting edge of doing a lot of different things, podcasts, putting out content, and your it was interesting watching that journey because it began to evolve and it's taken you to quite a few places. You've talked with many different people across the industry. So tell me about that journey from there to here, that evolution, and what has that been like for you? It's been kind of fun to watch you, and I knew you from afar, and I always admired you, and I was like, man, this stuff is very useful, and I learned a lot from you in Boolean and just watching your content. It helped me grow as a recruiter. So I want you to know that
Thank you.
that I'm very proud of you as a human being because of what you've accomplished and where you are, and you're humble too. I know this is hard to hear sometimes, and you're probably
Mm.
you're like some of the other folks in our industry that are just very gracious about it. But tell us about that journey. What has it been like for you?
I appreciate all those words. I feel like you just that could have been my eulogy right there. So
Not meant that way.
I appreciate it. And I've been involved in sourcing since 1997.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, yeah. It's my first sourcing gig was at a telecom company, MCI,
Hmm.
and
Oh
I
my
was
goodness,
yeah,
that was the
yes,
Bay Area based company, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
I
was
remember them. Oh my goodness.
yeah. I think let's see, it was
Didn't they get acquired by some
yeah, it got
company
acquired
for
by
a little?
British Telecom, which then
Yeah.
became Verizon or Sprint or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
Um, but MCI was like the big telecom darling at the time. We had Michael Jordan doing commercials for us
Right.
back in the day.
I remember.
And yeah, shout out to Carla Cavender and Jim Rock who worked with me on the sourcing team way back when. So jumped on the bandwagon very early because it was such a new kind of profession. There weren't
Mhm.
too many people out there talking about it. So the few of us who were in it, well, at least me, I felt compelled to share because there wasn't too many people out there. When I started, it was before Airs, which is really
Mhm.
dating myself. I think Airs came out a
Mhm.
year after I joined MCI, and I found early on that I enjoyed experimenting. I enjoyed figuring out how to apply non-recruiting tools to recruiting. Like so some of my early experiments over my career, which is sort of, I guess, mainstream now, was podcasting for one.
Mhm.
I remember when I worked for Microsoft, I was on an international recruiting team, and we were looking to fill an escalation engineer role, which is like a glorified tech support role. And the hiring manager wanted someone who's a very experienced software developer. Well, when we would talk to a software developer, they would say, "Oh yeah, I'll take the job," but they would say that only so that they can get into Microsoft, and then they would transfer over to Office or Xbox to do something they thought was really cool. So it was always a rotating door to get
Mhm.
in for that role. Somebody would stay in that role for, I mean, 3 months, then they were gone or something. So to solve that problem, I experimented with podcasts,
Mm.
and I made a podcast with someone who was already in the role who enjoyed doing it. Put a little bit of music behind it. I think it was the A-Team music, and I did a little reverse psychology. And I said, not just anyone is a fit for this role. It takes a special breed of person to be an escalation engineer. Are you part of that special breed, kind of thing? And uh, put it on the Microsoft Jobs blog, because I was blogging for Microsoft then at the time as well. And
That's
it
cool.
was sort of new and different because this was 2006, 2007, something like that. So using podcasts to promote jobs was totally different at the time. And so I posted it on the Microsoft blog. Other developers saw it and they started reposting it on their blog and
Mm.
sharing it on their MySpace page to date me even more. And it just sort of took off, and that was a successful experiment. We filled the role, and we filled the role with people who wanted the role, who didn't transfer out. So doing things like that. I remember another experiment. I did this at Google and at Microsoft. And again, this is no at Microsoft. This was 2008 when I was doing this. There was a very popular gadget at the time, a flip camera. It's like a little
Mm.
white
Mhm.
um, camera.
I remember
And
those. Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. And I had the absolute privilege to train some recruiters in India, right?
Mm.
And so when I went to India, it was for Microsoft's India Development Center. And while I was there, after I did my training with them, they were so nice to me. Oh my gosh, so nice. I thought I was royalty the way they were treating me, and I wanted to give them something back. So I said, I got this idea. I said, well, I'll make a Bollywood film because Bollywood movies are big there. So I put a sign on this office store, and I said, making Bollywood film, inquire within, right? So people walked by and they were like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm making a bunch of videos about what's it like to work here at Microsoft. In 30 seconds or less, tell me why you like working here. And they'll say, oh, it's great, it's wonderful. Yeah, right. And if you were to see these videos, you'll see that you would be able to tell right away that these are not actors. These are people
Yeah.
who work there who like it. So I made about 8 or 9 different videos of people saying why they like working at Microsoft. I also made a couple of videos of them playing cricket, which was a big deal over there. So behind the conference center was a cricket match. So I got a few shots of that, foosball table, different things around the facility. And I put all the videos together on Soapbox, which is also dating myself because Soapbox was Microsoft's answer to YouTube, but YouTube uh, beat them so bad that they
Mhm.
discontinued Soapbox. But I had it all up on the Soapbox page, and I sent the link to the head of recruiting in India, and I said, "Hey, share this link with your recruiters and use the messaging more or less. I could tell you how great it is to work here, or you can just click this link and see for yourself, right?" And it was well received. Again, it was sort of different. The recruiting videos, if they weren't a lot of them out there, if there were any. So this was really different. The recruiters started sharing it with the people that they would recruit for and included in their engagement emails,
Mm.
and it just sort of took off. And that was a wonderful thing. And when I came back stateside, because of the success of what happened in India, I said, I'll do it again for the international recruiting team. We had a facility in Vancouver, and that video, which I did put on YouTube, which you can still see, if you do a search on Google or Yahoo or Bing or AL search, because it was ranking high on those sites for a while, and I believe still is. Do a search on Microsoft Canada Development Center, and you'll see my video still ranking. And in that video, I did pretty much what I did in India: walked around, talked to people, and said, "Hey, what do you think about working here?"
And
And if
that's
you want,
really cool.
yeah, it's the gift that kept on giving, because I still would get emails
Huh.
way after the fact, years later, saying, "I tried to contact you at Microsoft." I said, "Well, good luck. I'm not there anymore." And
Wow.
they'll reach out to me on LinkedIn, you know. Um,
Oh.
so yeah,
Well,
so
and
podcasts
then
and videos.
you've taken that
Yeah.
skill set that you kind of learned by experimentation and you've brought it
Oh
to
yeah.
your new role,
Yeah.
which is kind of neat because you've become a thought leader in your own way. I mean, and in your and 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 it's cliche to say that sometimes, but
Sure.
honestly, I mean, I love how you, like, for example, is very relatable. You know, people always I've heard it in various recruiting circles. This is actually true, and then people grab it. They love it because it's so relatable. So
Hmm.
yeah, what has that journey been like taking that skill to SourceCon now for you?
Oh, well, anyone who follows us on SourceCon knows I do a lot of video. Do a
Hmm.
lot of podcast. I also do a lot of creative graphics. I grew up on comics. I guess you can sort of tell in some of the work I do. And so
I love it.
when you see some of the art that I post with, along with different articles, that sometimes they have a comic book kind of feel. That's just me. Um, Also, a little known fact to some people is when I was in college, uh, my degree that I pursued was film and video. So
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
a lot of that comes from that.
Wow.
Used to work at a TV studio too.
How did you
Also
make
another.
that switch to recruiting? How'd that happen?
Well, because of a girl.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I was my original career plan was to write a screenplay, get it made into a movie, go to Hollywood, and become rich overnight. And
Oh,
so when I was in college, that was my trajectory, because I wrote a lot of stories, wrote a lot
okay.
of books, wrote a lot of screenplays, entered a lot of contests, and did not really get anywhere with that. And my girlfriend at the time, we were discussing getting married. Didn't work out, but she said something that changed my life. She said, "If you're going to be with me, you need to get a real job." So my Hollywood aspirations were not really getting me anywhere. So I went to the career section, the career board at Georgia State, which is basically a room full of want ads on the
Uh-huh.
wall. And one of the jobs said get paid to surf the internet. And at this time, this is the era of America Online. And my only experience with the internet at that time was when a friend of mine, George, who worked at Georgia State, he brought me to an office, pressed a couple of buttons, and a picture of a woman in a bikini popped up. I said, "What's that?" He said, "That's internet." I said, "Internet's cool." So that's the only thing I thought the internet was for at that particular time. And then when I saw this job ad that said get paid to surf the internet, I went down to check it out, and that's how I started MCI, because they
Uh,
had just started a internet research arm for sourcing, and what it
mhm.
was called internet researchers is what they called us
Yep.
then.
Yep.
And she was the person I spoke to, Rachel Falcon at the time, now Rachel Platt. She was telling me how that people are putting their resumes on the web, and we need people to find them, which I thought was
Mm.
so bizarre at the time. Again, this is 1997. I thought, this is who put their resume on the internet. That's just weird. Then I asked her how to do it. She sort of deflected a little bit, and I said, "Okay, you need somebody to figure out how to do it. Makes perfect sense." So when I got home after the interview, which I wasn't really sure that I landed because I didn't really know, um, I went home, went to Yahoo, again, dating myself because that's where
Mm.
Google was before it separated from Yahoo. It was part of Google.
Mhm.
I went to Yahoo and Google, read the help menu, figured out how to search, looked at their jobs, and did some keyword searches, found some resumes, and sent it to her within 2 hours of the interview. I said, "This is what you want?" And she said, "Hired." And that's how I got into it.
Oh my
So
gosh. What a
yeah,
story.
oh yeah,
That
yeah.
is amazing. Oh my goodness.
So since
So
then,
wow.
I've been fortunate enough to work with different
You
companies.
fell into it and then you've
Yeah,
been
they
in it.
allow me to be creative. Yeah,
That's really
yeah,
neat, man. Well, what a great story. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't
yeah.
know that about you. I knew you like a lot of us. There's many roads into TA. So
Sure.
it's fun to hear the origin story, so to
Hmm.
speak. You know, going back to the comic book theme. But tell us what you're excited about for this Orlando SourceCon. What is it
Oh
that
gosh.
you're really thrilled about with this upcoming one? Because now, I mean, in past, just so folks have a primer, just to know about Jim, because Jim's always been involved in the community
Sure.
since it started in 2007, right, when it was
Yep.
founded. But as it's gained in popularity, Jim has kind of been involved in some degree or another, either as an EMC, either as a speaker, but now you run the whole thing, which is such a brand new perspective.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
hear about that, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, what your journey was like and what that feels like. But um, what are you excited about now that you own this conference? That it's yours. This is your baby.
Well, I would say that I wouldn't say own it because it definitely takes a village. There's
I
no
I
way
hear
one
you,
person can
but
do all this
you
stuff.
are like the face of it. So it's like,
Okay, you can say the
and
face, sure.
and you're also the one who has to keep it all the you're the glue behind it. Is a good way of putting it.
Uh, yeah, well, me and several people. I really can't stress how much it takes so many people. It takes the people I'm working with over at ERE who are really supporting and doing a lot of different things. It
And you're
takes
right.
the
That's true. They
community.
do. They get
Yep.
behind you. Yep.
Yeah, it
That's
takes a lot of volunteers. A lot of people have
I've seen
volunteered
it.
their
I've been there.
time.
I've watched it. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
and
on
then
the greet squad, so I know that part. So I
yes,
understand
yes,
that.
a lot of
Mhm.
volunteers and the community itself, people who consume the content, people who share the content. It is truly a village effect. You know, to your point, I may be the face and the point person on all these things, but I really feel like I'm just a part of a huge community because without that community, it wouldn't get done. Believe me. But
I love
thank you for
that.
the kind
I
words.
love how you stated that. And you're right. I think that's a really good perception of how SourceCon is achieved because
Mm,
it comes down to see. Here's what's amazing about the SourceCon community. I actually call this the spirit of SourceCon.
okay.
It's the essence of the community that it builds. Um, it's so amazing to me that I've had job opportunities that have,
Hmm.
opened doors to that because of my involvement. I when I first met Steve Levy face to face, when I came to one of my first source cons in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, just to give this perspective,
Sure.
he said, "Well, now that you're here, you have to give back." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And that was and it just it you want to give back. You
Hmm.
want to, that's how it works.
Yeah, truly, truly. It amazes it. The first few source cons, and certainly every source con since, I've heard consistently how people say they appreciate how they came to SourceCon and they learned something. Someone took them under their wing. Dean DaCosta opened up his laptop and magic fell out, or Glenn Cathy said something, or Reno, or myself, or Shally, or any number of people who just freely give out the information and really open up their laptops and their hearts to assist you. And if you were to look at all of the um, information that practitioners are freely sharing among each other because they want to benefit the community, and
Mhm.
you add that all up, I don't want to say yeah, like it really would dwarf the ticket price, really. The stuff that you get there, because in addition to what you learn from these practitioners front hand, you get to meet new people, you get to build relationships, and these relationships can help you, for years throughout your
Oh, yeah.
career. I've made friends at the very first source con that I'm still close to today, and that's not a joke at all.
Uh,
No, no,
so true.
no
Yeah,
exaggeration.
yeah.
So being able to be in a room full of people that can help you form your own personal brain trust, if that's a word or not, of people that can help you today and help you tomorrow, and who you can also could assist. I mean, is really a wonderful thing. Because I've been to many conferences, and the people that I've met and known, and maybe I've stayed in touch with from these other conferences, are people that I've met and already knew from SourceCon.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the key differentials there. It's a very strong community.
And there's a reason that I try to be part of it every 6 months for me, because I'll say a couple things that I think, from, and I'm repping today because I had to. I felt like I needed to today. I love the community, and I think one of the things that's always been powerful to me is I come back with new cutting edge stuff
Sure.
every single time. And look back on the last 4 years of this turbulence. That's the word I'll use, turbulence
Yeah.
in the industry of TA that's been affected by the macro level events of COVID and AI.
Mm,
And
mm,
I mean, you just keep going. Like, in a very short span of 4 years, we've gone from everybody being employed to people being unemployed because of a big shock to the system, to the
yeah.
other pendulum where they overhired, and now we've got many in our community who are struggling and
Yeah.
in a transition period. I'm one of
Yeah.
them. I'm getting close though, crossing fingers. It could be the next week if everything comes together the way I want it to. But I think there's a lot of amazing things that come from that community in that way. And just to say it that way, I think it's the essence of community that drives the power behind it, because it's the sharing that happens.
Hmm.
And I always come away with new ideas that are just front edge, cutting edge stuff. Um, what has been one of your favorite memories there that you've had? I mean, there's probably so many to choose from, but is there a
Wow.
favorite one that you could kind of drill down and say, this is the one, this is one that I just love, one of my favorites? And if
Wow.
not, that's okay. Maybe you could share one or two. It's up to you.
Yeah, because it would be hard to uh because the majority are good. A couple of are embarrassing. I'll share an embarrassing and a good one. Okay. An embarrassing moment that I remember, uh, not necessarily fondly, but I do remember it. Was when um see, it was Sherry, it was Mark. They formed a band. So because Mark
Mark
Tortorici,
Tortorici.
yeah,
Yep.
he plays guitar, and then Sherry, Sherry Dresser, she also played a little bit. And they were talking about building a band, and some kind of way they had a karaoke event or something at one of the source cons in California, right?
Cool.
And so people got up to do karaoke, and so I got up to sing. What was the song? It was Roxanne by the Police, and I did a horrible transition. I mean, a horrible rendition of Roxanne.
Is there a video out there somewhere?
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. It was
We
terrible.
could source it and find it.
It was, I was very loud. I was very off key. Had a good time, but I sounded terrible. And I was so glad when it was over. And I felt a little, I definitely felt embarrassed when I had sat back and said, man, I really did that. And that was so bad because I'm not a singer. I may like to sing sometimes, but
Uh-huh.
I'm not a singer. It's very evident. But I had a good time, but it was embarrassing. So that's one. Another memory that was a good memory was the first couple of source cons actually. And these are actually easy to find. If you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/at SourceCon, and look at the SourceCon flashbacks, you'll see a playlist of 100 different videos from different source cons over the
You've
years.
been sharing them, and it's
Yeah.
fun to see. And
Thank you.
some of the
Thank you.
the cool folks from, and like Dan Harris was in one, and there was a
Yeah.
few other ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
were fun to see.
Some of the ones that I looked through those, and some of those are really good memories where I'm thinking of the original Grandmaster challenges. Like we have hackathons now, but back in the day, in the early days of SourceCon, there were Grandmaster challenges that took you days to sort of solve, and you would get to the point where the last challenge was done at SourceCon, And
Mm.
so when Mike Notaro won the very first Grandmaster,
Mhm.
that was really cool. When I think the second or third Grandmaster Challenge, when it was Mike was competing with Kathy Robinson and Irina Shamaeva,
Mm.
and
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Gee whiz. Those are two great names right there. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, yeah, and it was like, gosh, forgive me. It's another young lady who was in that too. See, that's why I hate mentioning names because I know I'm gonna forget someone's name. But anyway, um,
That's okay.
when they all competed and Catherine won that contest, that was a really special moment because we were all when she won it, we were all in this room and everybody were playing Guitar Hero
Mm.
in the room, which was a big game then. I don't know if Guitar Hero is still big.
Oh, yeah.
Again.
Still
Okay.
around.
Yeah. So
That's
people
cool.
people were playing that, and then they came in and announced, and we were like, "Yay!" So that's a really fun moment that I remember fondly. And then thirdly, another memory that's sort of bittersweet is that when I look at some of the SourceCon flashback videos, I recognize people who are no longer with us, people who are dear friends of mine. And so when I see them pop up in
Derek
the
Zeller.
video, yeah, 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 I'm thinking Derek
Talk about
Zeller.
a humble, amazing person that impacted
Yes.
so many
Oh
in the
yeah.
community for sure.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And there are others. Marie Journey definitely being one. Katie. Several others.
Katie,
Uh,
yes.
see, Seeing them in the videos, it's like, oh man, I remember them. We were such good friends, and I remember she showing me this. I remember this, that, and the other. No longer with us. Bittersweet, but it still was a memory, something I hold on. But it's just another example of how you go to SourceCon, you build relationships, you stay connected with people, you learn from them, you become friends, and it just sort of stays with you. So those are
One of
some of the memories I think about.
the
Yeah.
one of the big traditions is
Mm.
always what's called the family dinner.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
do you have a kind of some history of how that began and how it kind of evolved?
A lot of SourceCon just sort of happened and just sort of evolved. I think initially with the family dinners are when all the speakers get together,
Hmm.
and after the event, typically, and we just grab a brewski and eat somewhere, just sort of talk. That morphed a little bit depending on the SourceCon, where it'll be the speaker or it'll be the speaker and maybe some of the volunteers and some of the later ones. I think now is just pretty much just the speakers for the most part.
Hmm.
But just like SourceCon After Dark, it evolved. SourceCon After Dark was pretty much after um, the first day of SourceCon. I think initially
Hmm.
we only had SourceCon as one day, then it grew into two. But essentially, it was like, okay, the official conference is over. Come over to the bar with your laptop, and people will just drink and share and drink and drink and share some more stuff, and it just sort of happened that way, and people liked it when you started doing it again and again. I mean, we have a SourceCon After Dark with this event coming up in Orlando, which is pretty much at a certain time. Look at the SourceCon agenda. We are going to just agree to meet at the bar. We're going to bring our laptops. We're going to drink and we're going to share, and we're going to just see what happens. And we just sort of it's just sort of a natural thing. We just hang out there and
But
talk and share
that's what
things.
was kind of the precursor to the hackathon.
Yeah,
Um, and so
yeah,
that then the hackathon kind of took on its own reality.
exactly.
One of my favorite pictures, this is a fun one,
Hmm.
is there was Greg Hawkes. Oh my goodness, and her name is escaping me now.
See, that's why you get in trouble when you start
I
naming
know,
names, right? Because
but
then they'll think you
it's the
didn't
one
remember
where
my name.
there was
Yeah.
the foursome at the end. This
Lisa
was
Offit. I'm sorry. Her
it
name
was
popped in my head
two
from Grandmaster Chat.
2008
Lisa. Go. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
2018. Uh, there was that really intense. It was Susanna Fraser,
Mm.
Greg Hawkes. Um, she was who was it that was one of the hackathon helpers last time, and she's really awesome. And this is why I don't know why her name's not coming to me. It's driving me
Is it
crazy.
Julia? Julia Stone, maybe?
No, it's anyway. She's a member of the LGBTQ community, and she's just a really sweet
Mhm.
person, amazing human. But they were all competing, and they were all in the foursome at the very very end. And there was it was also our friend from Germany, I believe is where he's from, and they were all kind of in the final four,
Mhm.
and it was a
Mhm.
really neat ending, and I just remember that picture so well, the intensity. And Greg often will talk about, I've talked to Greg about that time, and he says he was so nervous because they had people telling him what to do behind him. You need to focus. So, but
sometimes they heckle.
yeah, but the hackathon has become less intense in a way because now
Mm,
it's a little bit more individual, and then you're on a leaderboard and you're
yeah,
watching how the leaderboard. So it's evolved from that perspective. It used to be you'd be in groups, the groups would compete, and then you'd get down to the final four, and then they'd compete as individuals. So
yeah.
that's how it's evolved too. So it's been an interesting. But I got to question 10 last time in Minnesota, so I was actually kind of proud of myself. I was like, I didn't think I'd get this far. I was competing all the way at the end, but then I got stuck on this question that was so obvious it was ridiculous. So there was this
It,
one. It was it was actually in a profile, and
mm,
and you had to I think it was Megan Whittington's profile, and it slipped me up because I went in. You had the point of information was actually you clicked into a picture, and it was so obvious. And you look. I mean, I was trying to do Boolean, I was trying to do all this back end stuff, and I'm it's like right there. But I think
yeah.
the one important thing that I'll say about that learning, which I love, is that sometimes sourcing is so flippin' obvious.
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's easy to overthink. So
yeah,
easy
that's
to overthink
exactly it,
things.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's another wonderful thing about the community. And well, what are some of the topics that are going to be covered this time? You don't have to
Oh
name
my God.
names or anything,
Yeah.
but if it
It's uh uh the
maybe
psychology behind
keynotes,
source.
you could talk about that too.
Yeah, psychology of sourcing, LinkedIn hidden search features, or others using GPT for DEI sourcing,
Oh, nice.
using different
That's great.
tools like Bard. Um, Another advantage of being the editor of SourceCon is that prior to being the editor, I would come to SourceCon and say, "Ooh, I wonder if this is going to be good because it sounds good," or I wonder if that was going to be good because it sounds good. So maybe I'll check that one out. As the editor, I look over the presentations prior to, and it's like, dude, they're all good. It's like
Yeah.
I am so glad. One of the advantages of coming to SourceCon is that as an attendee, you get access to all the recordings after the fact, and I really have to look at all of them, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not even saying this with sales hat. I'm looking at the presentations. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is good stuff, right? And I'm so glad that all of it is being recorded, and you'll be able to access the recordings for I think like 90 days or so. And then
Mhm.
permanently, if you want to access them after 90 days, then there's a pay route for that. But as an attendee, you get to go through the videos, and you're going to want to go through all of them because it's wow, a lot of great content here, a lot of great.
Mhm.
This is a really good lineup. I've seen several lineups over the years. This is a really good lineup. A lot of great content. I can't
Awesome.
wait. Even though I know what some of them are going to say, I still want to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think some of my favorites are, I love the breakout sessions because those are always
Yep.
helpful. I
Hmm.
love um the roundtables.
Yes.
Let's talk about
Roundtables.
roundtables.
Yes.
That's like one of the most beautiful things. What Talk about what that concept is and what does that look like?
Yeah.
What
So roundtable, you have I think we up to 15 tables
Mhm.
of people who someone will come up and they'll just say, okay, this roundtable is geared towards uh, sourcing and recruiting, the relationship between sources and recruiters, which I think is one of them, right? Another table is dedicated to metrics. Another table is dedicated to generative, uh, excuse me, AI, ChatGPT, that kind of stuff. And so you'll have like for lack of a better word, a guru, someone who's very experienced,
Mhm.
who is a practitioner who does this in their sleep in their
Mhm.
9 to 5, and they have a lot of stories to tell. They know where the bodies are buried, and they sit there with their laptop open and they say, "Okay, we're going to talk about metrics. Ask me anything." Right? And so you have the opportunity to talk to someone who, if you hired to train you, or hired to make on their hourly rate, I don't know if you could afford it, but it would be very expensive, right? But they have, for the benefit of the community, volunteered their time to sort of share their insight. It is invaluable. The cost savings on that alone mean, all the other speakers are great too, but of course, but a lot of them would be at the round tables as well. Just having that time, that one-on-one time to ask them a very specific question about something that you are dealing with is invaluable, because when you see them on stage, they have to talk in generalities because they're sharing maybe their experience and talking in general. But if you sit with them at the round table, you can say, "Hey, I'm having a specific problem with this particular issue," and you
Mhm.
address an expert, and they can give you an answer to your particular issue. It is invaluable in my
Yeah.
opinion, and
Well,
that's
there's another
that's the ticket right
favorite
there.
kind
Hmm.
of memory, and this might have been 2 SourceCons ago. I think it was at Dallas, and it was at the very end of the
Hmm.
SourceCon, and I guess it was just so cool. Brian Fink, okay, so
Yeah,
another amazing, giving human being
very. Hey,
that is
Brian,
just
if you're
such
watching.
a great dude. Okay, I mean, wow. My I took a picture of him, and he was surrounded by like 10 people. He's
Hmm.
got his laptop up, and they're all collaborating, and you can tell the intensity of the conversation, and it was just a candid moment. It was so everybody had left, and it was at the very end, and Brian could be going and socializing and doing different things, but there he is
Hmm.
with a crowd of people surrounding him, and it gave me goosebumps. I thought to myself, okay, if there's anything that epitomizes the power of this community, it
Hmm.
was in that moment. And he's just
Hmm.
at a table. He just opened up his laptop and started to give. So I think I love that piece of it, and
Yeah.
that's the other thing about this conference that's so special is that I think people that come away from it have lifetime, like a lifetime army of friends that can help
Hmm.
them if they're in any point of their career or going through something. Like there's a story that was told about um, by a keynote time, but it just comes back to me now. They were talking about you specifically, and there was a problem. Someone had an issue with figuring out video um, video marketing for a job, and
Yeah.
they picked up the phone. They said, "I got called Jim Stroud, and he gave me ideas." And that was
Yeah.
referring to you at the time. But see,
Mm.
it just epitomizes what that's all about because people know who they can go to for a specific issue. That's an expertise of that. They've faced a specific problem. And then what I love, if you ever go to the Facebook
Yeah.
group
Hmm.
and you just kind of scroll through the comments and
Hmm.
even search the group because you're going to find something that someone's addressed before. There'll be something that, and then you'll notice all the people that jump in with an idea, and it changes the whole course of things. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to switch to some drive-by stuff because we only have. So I wanted to ask you specifically, what are some of the big issues right now in talent acquisition that you see as being a big thing right now that is full at in this time?
You got cut off a little bit from me. What do I see right now in talent acquisition? Restate it again, please. I'm sorry.
What are the big issues that talent acquisition professionals have to be prepared for right now?
Oh, yeah.
Um, whether you're a sourcer or a recruiter, what do you see as one of the big issues, and what advice do you have for them?
Um, Stay current as much as possible on uh, Chat GPT, AI, different kind of tools out there. You don't have to know everything because I think it's impossible to know everything in every tool, but stay abreast of what's happening around you. Because so many companies are laying off right now, which is really interesting. It's because, of course, um, some companies have the mindset of, well, with all these new AI tools out here, I don't need as many recruiters and sourcers, so let me lay off some people, right? Only
Hmm.
to find out that they still need them, even though they have all these tools at the same time. It's time like these you want to make yourself as valuable as possible. So if you can get an edge, knowing how to use so many of these different AI tools, that will give you an edge.
Hmm.
If you know how to, if you can develop your emotional intelligence so that you can better relate to people, that will also give you an edge. If you have high emotional intelligence and AI tool knowledge, you're a superhero, right? Because
Hmm.
you're going to be more valuable than someone who is, say, they're good at their job, but they sort of shy away from all the AI tools and stuff, right?
Hmm.
So that it makes you more valuable. Again, learning everything is possible is impossible to know everything, but I try to assist where I can. On in the Facebook group, to your point, a lot of people are sharing knowledge there all the time.
Yep.
I have a video series that I produced with SourceCon called The Source, and
Mm.
just our
Yeah.
most recent video with Adam Kovacs, who is the one of the executives over at the Sourcing Seven. We did like a 30-minute demo of how to use Perplexity, which is a
Hmm.
ChatGPT competitor. Well, yeah, it puts me in the mind of ChatGPT. How to use Perplexity for sourcing.
Mm.
30 minutes of knowledge right there, free, right?
Mm. Yeah. Great.
Other videos that we've done, side hustle ideas for recruiters and sources for people who need to make a little side hustle while they're
Hmm.
in between or
That was
maybe.
really good, by the way. That was
Thank you, thank you,
excellent. Oh wow.
thank you, thank you. And then of course we did the webinar because, and I want to stress this as much as possible as well. SourceCon has such a great community, a community full of great ideas. Last month, I did a webinar with you about job hunting tips for
You did.
recruiters and
Hmm.
sourcers. That's an example of someone coming from the community say, "Hey, Jim, I think a lot of recruiters and sourcers could use some job hunting help." Ironically enough, I said, "Sounds like a good idea," and we did it.
And you
Other
were
people.
great. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. And so, if someone has an idea they think that the community would benefit from, definitely reach out to me. Looking for ideas, and I'm also looking to elevate the personal brand of sources and recruiters out there. So, if you have a great idea, a great experience, a process you like to share, I have no problem promoting you on the SourceCon platform and getting your name out there, which could also pay off
Wonderful.
dividends on down the road.
Well,
So, reach
and
out to
let
me,
me talk about this real quick because I think this is
please.
a really cool thing.
Yep,
You there are SourceCon chapters, and I think
yep,
there's still some that exist and are vibrant. We're trying to keep ours going, but it's been I've been working with recruiters of Utah to kind of try to keep a talent acquisition community out here kind of thriving. So I was co-branding for a little while. We'll get to a point where I can do more SourceCon Salt Lake City stuff, and that will come with time. But there's been a lot of just the community in general. There's local chapters in some cities,
yep.
and if you're interested in starting one, it's a possibility that you're still open to, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've spoken to several of the chapter leaders actually when I initially joined SourceCon in this capacity. I joined SourceCon as the editor in November, right?
Hmm.
And I've been admittedly consumed with getting this event and getting Orlando together. But once Orlando is over, I definitely want to talk about that a bit more. Um, my email address, jim@sourcecon.com, or reach out to me through LinkedIn. Let's talk. I'm open to talking to anybody, any idea you have, any suggestion. If you want to be made into a star, so to speak, and you have something to say to the community that could benefit the community, let's talk about that. I'm open to everything, but I imagine that I'll be talking to chapter leaders very soon after the Orlando event. I
Informed on
imagine.
that too. Well, it's been a pleasure having you. We're at time, but I do
Oh
want to say
wow.
thank you. That was just a great conversation. It just see how fast that goes. So,
Yeah.
hey, but we are out. I would invite you to check out SourceCon. Make sure if you're a recruiter or sourcer, go check it out. And recruiters, hey, you got to get good at sourcing. If you're two dimensional and you know how to do the screening and the qualifying and be finding, you're going to be a gold star in your organization. So this is what you got to do. Like Jim was saying, be on top of your game all the time and keep staying relevant. With that, we'll end. But thank you so much for coming on, Jim. It's been fun.
My pleasure.
And shout out to Higher Scale, our uh, sponsor, who is an open platform for recruiters to find opportunities for 1099. Mike out from Where's Your Next. Thanks, Jim.
Peace.